You have $4.3 million sitting in 11 metal boxes off a state highway in Georgia, and the only thing anyone knows about you is that you drive a Buick with a check engine light that's been on for 3 years, not hiding, just ordinary on purpose. While people around you post their wins, you quietly bought the thing nobody wants to look at twice. A rusted gate, a keypad, a gravel lot, and turned it into something that pays you every single month, whether you show up or not. It starts on a Saturday morning. You weren't planning to remember. You're not even there for yourself. Your cousin asked you to help him grab a mattress he'd left in a storage unit before the facility auctioned it off for non-payment. You show up 15 minutes early. There's a small crowd gathered near Unit 114, maybe a dozen people, coffee cups, folding chairs, one guy with a flashlight and a clipboard. The manager unlocks the door. Everyone stands at the threshold. No one's allowed to step inside. No one's allowed to touch anything. You just look. Boxes, a bike frame, something under a tarp. That's it. That's the entire information available to you. The bidding starts at $20. It closes at $340. The winner's a woman in her 60s who barely glances at what she just bought before wheeling a hand truck toward the unit. You ask the guy next to you what happens next. He shrugs. She'll sort through it, sell what's worth selling, dump the rest. You ask how often auctions like this happen. He says every facility runs them every month, sometimes every week. Whenever someone stops paying rent on a unit long enough, 40, 60, 90 days of missed payments, and the contents become the facility's problem to get rid of. You go home with your cousin's mattress in the trunk and a question that won't leave you alone. You spend the next few nights doing the unglamorous kind of research nobody bothers with, not a business plan. Just 40 minutes turning into 4 hours, turning into a spreadsheet you didn't mean to build. You learn the auctions are public record, listed on a handful of sites, sometimes just a notice board outside the facility itself. You learn winning bidders resell through flea markets, storage auction groups on Facebook, sometimes straight to junk removal companies for whatever they'll take off your hands. You learn most people who do this are chasing the dramatic find, the coin collection, the guitar, the thing that goes viral. You are not interested in that. You are interested in something else entirely, something none of the videos you watch seem to care about at all, the units themselves. Because here's the number that actually stops you. A single self-storage facility, nothing fancy, 60 to 100 units, the kind sitting behind a gas station on a road you've driven past 1,000 times, can generate somewhere between $150,000 and $400,000 a year in gross rental income, depending on size and occupancy, not from auctions, from rent, from the same 11 by 10 foot metal box, being paid for monthly by someone storing a couch they'll probably never need again. The auctions were never the business. The auctions were the doorway that showed you the business existed. You find your first opportunity 9 months later. A 4-building facility in a working class part of the county, 72 units, run by an elderly owner named Walt, who built it in 1994 and hasn't updated a single thing about it since. Not the locks, not the website, not the price sheet taped to his office window. Occupancy sits around 61%, which sounds low until you realize that's the opportunity, not the flaw. You buy it for $610,000, financed through a small local bank and a chunk of savings you'd been quietly building for years without a clear purpose. Walt throws in his ancient filing cabinet of paper leases as part of the deal. He doesn't even ask for more. The first year, you don't touch the buildings, you touch the pricing and the paperwork. You raise rent on the units that have been frozen at 2009 rates for people who will grumble but stay because moving a storage unit is more annoying than paying an extra $18 a month. You list the empty units online for the first time in the facility's history. Occupancy climbs from 61% to 74%. Net income that first year, $71,000. Your job at the time pays $58,000. The storage facility, something you spend maybe 4 hours a week on, just quietly out-earned your career. Nobody congratulates you. Nobody even knows the facility exists in your life. You mention it once at a family dinner. I bought a storage place. And the conversation moves on to your brother's job offer within 11 seconds. That's fine. That was never the point. You buy your second facility 18 months later, 60 units in a different county, $480,000, financed the same quiet way, using the first facility's cash flow as part of the down payment. This one already runs at 88% occupancy, which means less upside but less risk. And you're starting to understand the actual math underneath the whole industry. Self-storage doesn't need charisma. It doesn't need a great location, a beautiful building, or a compelling brand. It needs a gate that locks, a price slightly below the competitor down the road, and a customer base that once they move their stuff in, almost never moves it back out. The average storage tenant stays for roughly 15 months, and a huge share stay for years, quietly paying rent on furniture they've mentally already let go of. You start going to the auctions again, not to buy units, but to understand your own tenants better. You watch what people abandon: old tools, wedding dresses, filing boxes from businesses that don't exist anymore. You realize the units aren't full of treasure. They're full of the things people can't decide to throw away yet. That's the real product you're selling. Indecision, storage for grief and inertia and divorce and downsizing, priced at $89 a month, auto-renewed, barely noticed on anyone's bank statement until the day they finally deal with it. Your accountant, a quiet woman named Sheila, who's handled small business books for over 20 years, sits across from you with both facilities' numbers laid out. Combined revenue just over $410,000 a year. Combined net income after debt service, insurance, a part-time manager at each site, repairs, $164,000. She looks at the sheet the way people look at something that doesn't match the person sitting in front of them. You're wearing a flannel from a hardware store sale. You drove here in a truck with 140,000 miles on it. She asks if you're planning to expand into anything bigger, flashier, maybe a climate control facility downtown with the modern branding everyone's building now. You tell her no. You tell her you want more of exactly this. The same boring gates, the same forgettable buildings, the same tenants who'll never once think about who owns the place their old couch lives in. There's a guy at a real estate meetup you go to occasionally, mostly out of curiosity. He talks about his multifamily portfolio the way some people talk about their fantasy football team, loudly, at length, unprompted. He asks what you're into. You say storage, a couple of facilities. He nods, half listening, already looking past you for someone more interesting to talk to. You've been sorted. Small time. Not worth the pitch. Good. The moment someone decides you're not worth watching is the moment you get to keep doing exactly what you're doing without anyone's opinion attached to it. You buy your third facility 2 years after that. 110 units this time. Distressed, half-flooded records room. An owner who inherited it and just wanted it gone. $890,000. By now, the pattern is boring even to you, which is exactly the sign that it's working. Fix the pricing, digitize the leases, list the vacancies, wait. The facility crosses $95,000 in annual net income by year 2. Your niece asks you at a holiday gathering what you actually do for work. Since she's never quite understood it, you tell her you own some storage facilities. She asks if that's like the auction shows. You say no, not really. Those are about what people leave behind. What you do is about what people can't decide to leave behind yet, and you get paid every month until they figure it out. She laughs, thinks you're joking. You let her think that. The email arrives on an ordinary Wednesday. Subject line, Q3 Combined Portfolio Summary. You're standing in the parking lot of Facility 2, checking a gate motor that's been sticking when your phone buzzes. You almost don't open it until later. When you do, the number at the bottom stops you where you're standing, one hand still on a rusted gate track, the smell of hot asphalt and cut grass in the air. 3 facilities, 242 units combined, current appraised portfolio value, $4.3 million. Annual net cash flow across all 3, just under $290,000. You read it twice. Nothing around you changes. The gate still sticks. You still have to fix it. You put the phone back in your pocket and finish greasing the track because that's the actual job and the job doesn't care what the email said. You drive home in the same truck. You stop at the same gas station you've stopped at for 6 years. The guy behind the counter doesn't know. Nobody at the auction you'll probably attend again next month. Out of habit more than need will know either. You'll stand at the edge of a unit you're not bidding on, watching someone else win a box of unknown contents for $210, and you'll think about how that exact scene, standing at a threshold you weren't allowed to step through, is where all of this actually started. That's the part that stays with you, not the $4.3 million on the page. The fact that it began with someone else's mattress, someone else's unpaid rent, someone else's stuff nobody wanted anymore. You didn't chase a treasure, you bought the box. And the box, it turns out, was never about what was inside it. What are you quietly building behind a gate nobody looking at?